I want to shift from within the home and this village mentality of supporting our youth in the broken system. So where do you see that being?
I think we need to upskill all the grown-ups, not just the parents, but the teachers who are in the trenches. So how many children die of heart attacks?
I have no idea.
Just curious.
I don't have any idea.
No, but everyone is trained in CPR.
Right. Yeah. Good. Yes. That's a good point to know.
How many children die of suicide?
Way too many. And it's growing in countries globally. Janelle Miller Moravick, thank you for your time today with me. You're in Illinois.
I'm in Illinois. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Pleasure. You are in Libertyville, and you are the Executive Director of Youth and Family Counseling for 16 years. And I read about you're creating this wraparound system for kids. So what I want to talk to you today about before we talk more about you is that idea of us compensating for broken systems in our various countries of the world, and what we can do as parents and individually and collectively to build that village approach in a broken world. But you are in mental health. So tell me a bit about yourself. Liberty, Illinois.
Yeah. So I say I'm an accidental executive director because I actually came up in fundraising. I'm a fundraiser.
Okay.
And ended up at this little organization because I wanted to have that work-life blend of starting a family, and took this job, worked half-time. And then when the executive director left in 2009, I said, ooh, could I please have that job? Because I know exactly what I would do. And the board said, sure, go for it. And I stepped in, and it's been an amazing adventure. I'm not clinical, but I know enough. And I feel like I have my own experiences as a consumer of mental health services, as a mother of children who have used various levels of services throughout the years. And because of the work that I do, I see this role that I play as sort of a translator between my community and the system. So the helpers and the people who need help.
Right.
That's sort of the space that I'm trying to fill.
And I know you are looking at expanding mental health care programs, correct? Yeah. But you and I talked about the brokenness of our systems. So it's interesting for me looking at you. You're trying to build our systems, but our systems are broken within. So can you talk to me about both? Talk to me about what is broken and what are you trying to grow within the broken system? And then I want to shift into what we do as individuals.
Yes, there's so many parts about our system that aren't working well. So when I start at the very fundamental point of people need help and they can't get it, then that leads me down a path of, well, why can't they get it, right? So certainly one of the factors is stigma. Another is there aren't enough providers. We're in a significant workforce shortage. So here in Illinois, where my state, they estimate that we have the workforce to address 24% of the behavioral need. Wow. So it was a problem before COVID. And then in this post-COVID era, it's just even worse. And it takes a long time to grow a therapist. So all of the work that my organization has been doing since 1962, which has been sort of financial accessibility, and then it sort of evolved into, geographic access and cultural linguistic access. It came down to appointment availability. It doesn't matter how much money you make, what insurance you have or don't have, where you live, there just simply aren't enough appointments. And so that started me down this path of workforce development and all of the things that we need to do to strengthen, rebuild, change the face of our workforce. And then in the meantime, you still have people right? Because this is going to take 10, 20 years. In the meantime, you still have people who need help and who can't get help. And so the way I think about it, that's on two sides. That's on the consumer side, right? That they don't know, they don't have enough literacy around what the behavioral healthcare system looks like. And I should say, I'm going to use air quotes around system because it's really more like a scatterboard.
Right.
Like here in Illinois, in my community, in Lake County, it's a bunch of standalone providers. When we talk about physical health, we talk about, okay, in urgent care, all urgent cares kind of look the same. They all do the same thing. They might be embedded in different systems, but an urgent care is an urgent care. You're going to go there for the same reasons. That's not necessarily true in behavioral health. A partial hospitalization or an intensive outpatient, they don't necessarily fit the same mold. They might have the same schedule, but they might be treating different things. And so there's this lack of literacy in our consumer base around understanding acuity level, and then what's the appropriate response for that acuity level that gets in the way of someone getting the help that they need and ending up at the right door. And so that's, to me, is one way the system is broken, is that it's not a system.
Right.
And it's not cohesive, and there is no beautiful communication, collaboration amongst the providers, right?
I want to add one thing, if I could, to what you said. You're looking at getting new practitioners. Like, we need more psychologists, more clinical counselors. But I think the key word there is more good providers. We need good providers that are in it. And because we've had a problem in that area too, right? Of people that want to fix themselves, they go into this profession. And we're not even going to get into that. That's
a whole other Oprah show.
That's a good Oprah show. All my trauma of the job that I choose to do. But I do want to know, for you now, for the youth that are coming to Access and the families that are coming to Access, can you nail down for me like the greatest problem that you see in your clients, the people that you're serving?
Presenting problem, like the reason that they're seeking services?
What's the underlying problem?
Underlying.
Or start with presenting. Can you do presenting, then can you do underlying?
I would say presenting, but we're diagnosing them with anxiety, depression, that adjustment disorder, right? So that inability to respond to change. But I feel like on a whole bunch of levels, what we're actually working with is helping families, and I mean children and their grown-ups who are bringing them, really build those resiliency, just coping skills. You have to pick yourself back up and go back out there. And that's become really hard. And somehow we became not good at it. And I think children they're struggling. Yeah. They're struggling to go out there. And so we're back to the basics of teaching children how to develop those independent skills and go for, right? Because isn't that our job and I'm speaking as a parent, it's to launch an independent human who can go out and be a difference maker, whatever that looks like for them. Yeah. But that starts when they're little.
It does. Well, so I would say on my psych unit where I had a classroom, the number one presenting challenge was anxiety over everything else. And that was my experience. And the underlying was a sense of not feeling worthy, neglect, not feeling you matter, connections, which start at home. That was my experience. And it's not PC, to say it all starts at home. Like it starts at home.
I agree. It starts at home, and it's really, I'm just going to say, it's really hard to swim upstream if you're a parent.
Very.
Our community structures, I don't know, are set up to encourage swimming upstream.
Yeah.
My children, we live on this wonderful block. It's one block, in between two sort of busier streets. And there were a ton of kids and all around the same age, and they would play outside together. And we could tell what house they were at by where the pile of bikes was. That person's front yard, that's where the kids were. And we'd yell, or we'd go down the street. They were never inside. They were always in the backyard or, running around. That was, to me, that's like the iconic American childhood. But that's not the case for most, neighborhoods. And indeed, as the children got older, we didn't see that anymore, because there came a point where they started playing, travel soccer, travel baseball, and then every minute was scheduled out. I think you hit on something when you said neglect. It's attention. And as adults in this world, our attention is pulled in so many different places. And I know as a parent myself, right? In this world, most families need both parents to work outside the home.
Yeah.
And our school day ends at 2:45, maybe 3:30. Most parents don't leave work until 5:30 or 6. So parents are cobbling it together. They're, trying to do calls while they're sitting at the soccer field. And that blur happens on both sides. And it's not good. It's not good for anybody. And I think demands continue to ratchet up. Again, coming out of COVID and work at home, there's a disintegration of boundaries, and then the rise of youth sports. I mean, I think from the time my kids were my oldest was maybe in 6th grade on, there was no dinner at home, and I worked part-time.
Right.
And it wasn't because of me or my husband. It was because the kids, like that's when it was always during dinner time. So my husband's a high school teacher, and we talk a lot about, gosh, it used to be the high school was the center of everything.
Right.
And then at least you'd be home. Whatever. That's not the case anymore. And it's harder and harder to find those connections. And that, Suzanne, I think that holds true for families. It holds true for faith communities. It holds true for schools. Everyone is having to redefine belonging, connection, and how are we going to support, facilitate, enable, right? Have all of that, because that, at the end of the day, not just for kids, but for adults. Yeah. That's what makes us happy.
I think it's really important to go back to that whole time you have for your children. I feel for a single parent who's working 70-hour weeks and to be able to spend time with your kids. But we're also seeing that same thing in very affluent families where you've got parents that are working 70-hour weeks, or the level of activity that you described. I think that's happening across the board in all socio-demographic areas, that everybody is still feeling the same way. And it could be the achievement culture that your kids got to do this, that's still doing the same thing of, not spending that deep time with the kids, and you're running, and then not the family dinners. I saw it across the board.
Yep.
At the unit.
Yeah. There's a great book out that's called Never Enough, and that's it, right?
Yeah, I refer to that one all the time. That's so good. Okay, so then here's a tougher question. We can talk about the doomsday aspect, but what do we do tangibly on an everyday basis to mitigate, to offset these problems of our own busyness and parent mental health and our own screen time and careers and our finances right now, and putting food on the table? What is the solution that is nowhere solvable in even 10 hours of discussion? But where do you think that would be rooted?
I think number one, I think for me, it comes back to parents being able to manage their own emotions.
Mm,
And so we, not just children don't have the skills for emotional regulation, but the grown-ups in their lives and the parents and the teachers,
yeah,
don't have them. And so I think we have to
yeah,
put our own oxygen masks on. We need to be super mindful of, what's happening in my body, right? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing?
hmm
And then we have to be adept enough to really think about how our emotions are impacting other people, colleagues, and our children. I think that's first and foremost. So right, naming the emotions, managing them appropriately, and
hmm
that's a really hard ask when I think our bandwidth has shrunk so that it's
True.
teeny tiny.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but that's really important. And then once we have control of ourselves and we have our lizard brains are offline and our thinking brains are online, right? Then we can be those creative problem solvers and we can say, okay, so family dinners are out the window. How about we have nightly desserts
right.
together, right? Or how about we do breakfast, even if it's 5 minutes,
hmm
we're going to stand up and touch base and have breakfast before we all, like,
Right.
it's going to look different for everybody as it should. But I think it's the intention, it's holding that consistent framework for the kiddos.
I think what I'm interpreting what you're saying is it is number one, recognizing
Yeah.
that we are all going like hamsters on a wheel and the importance of slowing down. Even I think a little thing of like put your cell phone far away when you are having your
Mhm.
dessert time or your breakfast time. Get off as parents off your phone and just recognizing the importance. And then you're also talking about intentionality, being intentional on scheduling time that you can if you've got a Sunday night free because it is, yeah, it's, I know so many families are nonstop.
And I think at some point with the tweens and teens, our language and how we talk to our children has to shift
Hmm.
to inquiry based and really being curious and trying to be where they are as opposed to pushing them forward. I wish we could take the foot off the gas
Yeah, yeah.
pedal and just let them be. So I think if in my dream world, if I were to run my own school, my husband as a high school teacher, we talk all about, oh, the school we would love to run and operate. There would be mandatory lunch that would be like an hour
Right.
with lots of microwaves and
Yeah.
hot lunch. And there would also be, you couldn't take more than 3 APs.
Right. For sure.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and right. And so that, and there wouldn't be a lot of homework. My husband taught summer school this past summer and said, guys, listen, you're freshmen coming in. You want to make a really good impression, but we're not going to have any homework in this class because I want to watch you do it.
Mm.
I want to make sure you're not going home and using AI. So
Good.
all of the homework is going to be in class. And the kids were like, oh, what? That's it? You're not going to
Right.
give us more homework? It's like, no, I want it to be quality homework,
Right.
not busy
Right.
work.
It's interesting. What you just described is actually my alternate education high school. What you talked about. We have a full hour lunch. No, wait for it. We have tea time in the afternoon.
I love
And
that.
I work with kids that like can't get to school. I went with them on Thursday and we were like lining up for cake and do you guys want tea? And all of a sudden they're having to socialize and they like it around cake. But here's the interesting thing about that. These are the kids that the mainstream program didn't work well for them. It didn't work for them. So all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, we've got to do things differently. But it shouldn't be that you can't get to school. You're bombing all your classes. You're barely out of bed in the morning with depression and anxiety and self-harm, etc. That we recreate a system that should actually probably be universal because we know from Jennifer Wallace, Never Enough, the toxicity of our achievement culture and the pressure that we put on the kids.
Yeah.
So it's in everything you said. Yep. My alternate ed high school has that, but because they were forced to, because the kids weren't going. throughout the district. So then you have to change.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, I heard a statistic, right, that coming out of COVID, that the absenteeism is really high across the board. The need for mental health days. Like,
Yeah.
like we just keep digging ourselves in a hole. Why can't we just,
So we talked about home support. I see, and again, I'm sure this is not what you're supposed to interview, but I'm biased in terms of we need a village mentality. We have to support our parents, our teachers, everybody involved. So I want to shift from within the home and this village mentality of supporting our youth in the broken system. So where do you see that being, this village to raise a child that really we had 50 years ago?
Yeah.
We lost it. And how'd that work for us? And I argue we've got to go back to that. How'd that work for us? We all isolated, kids know that or feel that they don't matter. The research is astounding of isolation and loneliness.
Yeah, I think we need to upskill all the grown-ups, not just the parents, but the teachers who are in the trenches. So many of our schools here have great social workers, but they're not the ones who are seeing the kid day in, day out and are going to recognize and spot that flag of, ooh, something's off. But coaches, think of all of the after-school providers of activities there are. So how many children die of heart attacks?
I have no idea.
I'm just curious.
I don't have any idea.
No, but everyone is trained in CPR.
Right. Yeah. Good. Yes.
But
good point to know.
How many children die of suicide?
Way too many, and it's growing in some countries globally.
And we don't provide people with the tools to respond appropriately. And so this, right? So I feel like everyone should be upskilled, and part of it is understanding when to step in, understanding how to have the little conversation to get a sense of like the acuity, and then sending them to the right place. It can be really traumatizing for someone who's not suicidal to get sent to the emergency department and to sit there for days waiting for a psychiatric assessment. Was that the right place for them, or did they need to have a more nuanced response and maybe, caught by an outpatient provider in partnership with the parents who are holding that kid safe, right? I feel like, absolutely, if there's a safety issue, get yourself safe. It might mean going to the emergency department. But my point is, we don't always know what's not safe. And so our instinct is crisis.
Right.
And that's true for some people, but also not everybody. And hey, how about we stop it and recognize it before it gets to that point? But that's bucking a whole system. I don't know if I can change a whole system, but I can work on upskilling all the parents. I can help all of the adults in the children's lives understand how to respond appropriately, where to go. I mean, even some providers and referring professionals, unless you're on the front lines working your network every day, you might not know the ins and outs and who has openings and who takes eating disorders and who works with OCD. You might not know all of that color. And so you can still make a not great referral. So I want to upskill the adults and help them better have the skills to better navigate the system. I also want to make the system a little friendlier. And that's a big ask, right? But at my organization, we're a bit of a hybrid. So we are a little bit community health, a little bit private practice. We play in both worlds. We have friends in both worlds. Wouldn't it be great if we could all talk to each other? And wouldn't it be great if, we had some centralized collaborators who would say, I've got a 3-week waiting list. I'd love the clients, but really they need help today. So who can see them and how can we get them to you quickly? But right now we're all businesses, so we're all in competition.
Right.
And that isn't happening, but it can. I would argue there's enough need out there for everybody.
Yeah.
Because we don't have it, right? We don't have enough. Remember, we started the conversation with there's only 24% of the need being met.
Yeah.
So there's enough need for everybody.
You know, I think I totally agree. Like we have to train our adults. We've got to build up our adults across every, like, coaching and education, and not just the parents that we can support. But I think my biggest response on that is 2 words. And I say this all the time when I present, is buy-in. You need buy-in. If you don't have buy-in, it doesn't happen. And how do you get the buy-in? I will tell you, in this province, it just came out in June, our premier has mandated AEDs in every school in 61 school districts. I know a district that is $600,000 that they're spending out of this year's budget that was already spent. Okay, AEDs in school, he's decided. And yet I can tell you, I went into social media and really the parent audience because the educators were not choosing to learn about understanding youth mental health, or what do kids at a psych unit say that they want for wellness, because number one, they're so frazzled, right? And just tell us what to do. And if you don't have buy-in, it all falls flat. And so it's, how do you get that buy-in? And yet the thing is, I think everybody knows it. We all know it. Like every teacher knows, oh gosh, what's happening with the kids. They know that. But what are you actually going to plan to do about it, and to have the buy-in to do so? Unless, I'll tell you, sorry, one more thing. The people that do have buy-in are the parents are the teachers that have buy-in are those that either had their own mental health disorders, major depression, major anxiety. They get it. They are bought in. And the second teachers that are bought in is they have a child, their flesh and blood, who is suicidal, struggling. There's no question. Those are the groups that have the buy-in because they've now seen how awful it is and how much it's needed.
Yeah. And I would say that's true across the board because you've navigated the space, you understand. So I don't know, what does it look like? Does it look like our universities need to start teaching mental health in schools? It's got to be more than social emotional learning, right? It's got to be teacher response. And then schools have to have protocols. I would also argue schools need strong middle management so that teachers are supported and strong. We can't simply turn on and say, oh, let's give it to the schools, because the schools, like, they play a role, but they're not the only answer. They're partners.
They don't have capacity
to read at home.
Totally.
Right?
And we need to give them the capacity, because I see schools not having the capacity with the systems that we have right now. Even our school counselor, like, that's a whole other, I did a podcast on that, because they're set up to do something, but they're given so many other tasks that they actually can't do their primary role as a counselor.
Right. So now we're over to, right, let's talk about how do we compensate and how do we set up for, it's a marathon.
Yep.
So how are you going to stay in your job? What's sustainable, manageable work? And how are you going to get compensated enough to keep you in the game?
Yeah.
And to attract the best people.
Right. And find the meaning and purpose in it. When you find your meaning and purpose and joy, you're done. You're good. You're good to go. Even if you can be busy. But if there's meaning and purpose and joy for all of the adults around. And for me as a teacher, for example, like, meaning and purpose and joy is foundational to how I love teaching, and I could have stayed forever at the psych unit, and I love what I do now because it's just now all of a sudden it's deeper. Right.
And I think every employee wants to have this feeling that they're making a difference, right? And no matter where you work, yes, we work for paychecks, right? And we work because it gives us purpose and meaning. It gives us a reason to get up in the morning. We take pride in our work. And so every employer should be engaging and feeding their employees and showing impact back.
Yeah.
It's not always the case.
I always do 3 wrap-up questions to take us back to this. This goal today was like talking about this village and all of us here together trying to support our kids. Here's my wrap up question. Number one. What is the one thing that you would change in, I'm going to say Canada and the US, okay, within our Western area and Mexico, so North America? What's the one thing that you would change to offer better care for youth? Like one thing.
More time.
How so?
I want them to have more time. I want them more time to do their homework. I want them to have more time to play. I want them to have more time in their doctor's appointments for them to have honest conversations with their doctors. I want to have more time with their parents. I don't want them to be so rushed. I want them to have more time.
Okay. Number two, what is the one message that you would tell parents struggling to know what to do with their child who is coming through your doors, struggling through their own mental health? It's the message now for the parents.
For the parents, we're partners. And listen, we know our stuff, right? We know best practices. We know how to deal with this, but you're the parent.
Yeah.
You know the child better than we do. And we have the child for 53 minutes. You have the child for the rest of the week. And back to buy-in. The parents got to buy in and support the work, or it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. Sometimes I say that, like, I think therapy is a lot like piano lessons. You know, you have to practice at home if you're going to learn the whole piece.
You know what? One of the things I said often, and my messaging now, is I want parents to be empowered with the spaces that they can create, because so many adults, parents, teachers, are feeling disempowered with how our systems are operating, what you can and cannot say or do. And I know a lot of parents that don't feel empowered because they don't know what to do with their kids. How do I get I literally was asked, how do I physically get the cell phone out of my daughter's hand, who's 18? And I want that empowerment to happen, because you are empowered to create spaces of like unconditional love, of leaning in and listening and getting off your phone and having those moments together, right? Of the time. You're still the adult in the room that can create that.
Parenting is the hardest thing we ever do, because there is no training manual.
No.
There's no instruction guide. You kind of got to figure it out. So I think that there has to be always a curiosity and a little bit of, I'm going to say, piracy in that, right? Everyone has something to say on fill in the blank, but you know your kid. So be curious about what's out there and select the one that you think is going to work the best. And then try again.
And know that we're all imperfect. Nobody expects perfection, and our kids don't expect us to be perfect. Like I also, with that empowerment, I want parents to feel grace and like the freedom that you are imperfect and you can make mistakes, because we all do, and it's how we learn. And don't flog yourselves, and take responsibility and ownership and learn from it and keep going and move on.
We joke here at the office, good enough parenting. You don't need to be a great parent. You just need to be good enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, here's my last question.
Yeah.
Where is the hope in our region of the world to be able to support our youth? Where do you see hope?
I think it's in the youth themselves. I think it's their interest, and their strong advocacy, right? They want things, they ask for them. And if we can channel and steer them into, using their voices and their experiences to change it, that's going to be really powerful. Yeah. But we have to empower them.
Totally.
And allow them to do that.
I feel that word empowerment needs to be out there, because of how everybody's feeling these days.
Yeah.
Really. Okay, Janelle Miller Moravick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting and chatting with me.
Great conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. And now you can do your part and share this with somebody that needs to learn that village approach that we build our kids up. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can subscribe to this channel and click like on that little link below. There are so many episodes to come about how we get on our child's turf and support them with people from around the world. I'll see you next time.